Hi, Benedict here from Harley Benton. Hope you're doing fine. Today we're here with Warren Huart.
How are you?
I'm fine, Warren. I'm so glad you're here. And
It's great to be here.
thank you. And we'll be kind of like producing a little track, just like a little bit, and completely out of the box. And I think it's going to be interesting to see on how you would approach like getting cool sounds out of Easy Drummer and kind of like to make them sound a little more real. And
Right.
Exactly. So that's what we're gonna do. I already prepared some stuff. We have our drums already laid down in Cubase, and I think let's have
Well,
a
we
listen.
did
Or-
off camera. We did a little thing. I think actually is probably worth talking about. Now, I'm not a Cubase user. I do love the sound of it, and I know many people use it. So it's not that the reason why I don't use it. So if we go back to the Easy Drummer page, the first thing we did was sort of bring down overheads and rooms. I find this is a big thing with live drum recording, but also using plugins and stuff like that. Is there's a little bit drummers can play very imbalanced, like really smash cymbals, and it's great for energy. And there was a period of time, especially mid 90s through early 2000s, that a lot of rock mixes was super splashy because it adds
okay.
excitement, like shh. However, when you're listening on like laptops, earbuds, and cell phones, which so many people do these days,
Totally.
it does not translate. So I think to be very, very careful when you're mixing drums, not to make it too cymbally, because it can really feel exciting when you're mixing for long periods of time, because your ears are very sensitive to high mids and tend to turn down quickly. So you end up pushing the cymbals up, pushing the cymbals up, pushing the cymbals up. It's that sort of balance, you know. And I remember a few years ago reading something with Andy Johns when he was asked about what overhead mics he uses.
Okay.
And he sort of said, I don't remember what I use. And they're like, why not? He goes, because I barely use them in the mix. And they're like, why? He goes, because I just use the room mics.
Ah, okay.
And it's actually quite interesting. So let's have a quick listen to your drums here. Okay, so there, it's pretty cymbal heavy. You know. So if we listen to this room here, we actually pulled these down earlier. Let's have a listen. I mean, that's a room, but
It's
it still has that sound of the drummer who's like crashing away like crazy, but just like, you know, that snare's just not really coming. So just honestly, simple logic. Just before you start getting in and using a ton of compressors and EQs and multi-band compressors to control high mids, before you get crazy with that, just rebalance the mix. I think that's one of the biggest obvious things is just play with the volumes first of all. You know, so we brought that down. Let's have a listen to the other rooms. I mean, I know these sound like really obvious things, but you'd be amazed. I watch people do so much work, and then I come back in and do like a quick rebalance, turn off a bunch of plugins, and they're like, oh, that sounds better.
interesting. Cool.
It's because I think it's important to always be listening as a whole and not spend too much time getting into details. Details are things that you want to get into when you hear a problem and you're trying to identify it. That's better. Very, very cymbally. Now on the plugin,
One of the plugin itself?
yeah, just get to that. You have to edit me here so I don't look too stupid. Only partially stupid.
Oh, there it was. There we go.
Okay, so my quick dumb question. Like so here's the mixer here. So this is just what's controlling it's being sent there. Shaker, timbre, overhead. So this is what's happening here, yeah?
Exactly. And you can like have here the blend of bleed. So how much everybody knows what bleed is like, how much
Okay.
bleed we're actually getting into the individual microphones of each.
Okay, cool. So this is interesting here. I like this function on Easy Drummer that you're just pointing out is the bleed. So let's do this. So let's see how that affects. How can I get this to loop, maybe?
Yeah, there we go. And like, let's get it. Yeah. No, we're sorry.
God bless Cubase.
There we go.
Control how much is leading.
I think how much.
All right. I think it's as simple as that. I mean, I actually brought the bleed down to minimum there. It doesn't seem like it's not like huge, like on and off. So bringing it down is quite very useful. And honestly, the biggest thing was just turning the overheads down. Great. So I think that's a good starting point. It's going to save our ears as well. Now, with drums, quite often what I'll do is I will take a submix of the drums and just send that to like a delay, like a super short, random delay. It doesn't have to be perfectly in time. It's not like dun. It doesn't have to be da 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 da. It can be da 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 da. It could be triplets. It could be anything.
Kind of like the levy breaks thing, just like way less.
Really, exactly. Really
okay.
quiet. Usually dark. I usually wipe off some of the top end. Tape delays are really cool for that. So like taking a tape delay and it's kind of, and then blend it so it's like that low underneath.
Ah, okay, cool.
And what it will do is add a little bit of random.
So want to do that?
Yeah. So set it
Okay.
up.
All right, cool.
So you can just take a submix of the whole drum kit.
Okay, so we got our. There, then, like,
Hopefully you'll edit this so it's faster.
yeah, so like create an effect channel, and what would you call it? Like drum delay?
Yeah, drum delay. I mean, it's not here to be a perfect delay. It's here to actually kind of mess it up a bit,
So like
randomize it, because that's the thing when we're dealing with one of the biggest problems with drum plugins is that we're working in MIDI. That only has 128 options. There is MIDI 2. I was talking to a friend of mine about this a couple of days ago. And MIDI 2 is going to have 1,000 plus options of velocities. So when you get drum fills, you'd think 128 is enough.
But
It isn't.
if you think about it,
Yeah, it isn't. And there's so many, idiosyncrasies in a performance. So what we're trying to do is just find ways to randomize and just make things a little less obvious and perfect.
So it's like you use this one which
Mono's
comes
fine. Yeah.
with like QS itself and
And sort of like high filter it a little bit more.
like really, where would you go? Like,
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, just high mids and yeah.
where would you go with a low filter?
With the low, I'd probably come up to about 100.
Mm-hmm.
I'd start there. I don't need a huge amount of low end build up,
Uh-huh.
but I don't want it to be bright. So I want this to be just kind of,
Okay.
we could experiment a bit more and go full blown Abbey Road EQ. The Abbey Road EQ is about 600 hertz and about 3 to 5K. Because basically what this is a random energy, just
like making it. So we need to get our mix cranked probably.
yeah, go exactly 100% wet. We don't want to have any phase
Okay,
issues.
so there we have our channel, and now we.
Is there a way to get out
just
of
like
that?
push that. Yeah.
Okay, so if that's equivalent to 50 milliseconds, I don't know. Let's go. Let's just go somewhere really super random.
Now, would
Saturation, yeah.
Distortion thing before it?
Yeah, it's either get a delay, like a tape delay that can have saturation, or put some saturation on it. So yeah, let's put some saturation before it. I like the idea of using stock plugins. I think this is showing off a little bit more what you can do.
So let's like get...
Anything you like.
Let's just get the distortion.
That's perfect, yeah. Okay, so really it's awful in a good way. I like how bad it is at the moment. So now, where is our volume of the delay? Let's treat me like an idiot on Cubase.
There you go, there's the faders. That one up.
Okay,
There's
so... I like what it's doing. I mean, it's kind of wrong. It actually still sounds a little too hi-fi in some ways, as much as the EQ's been applied. So let's go back here. I'm learning fast Cubase. I actually want to make it even worse. I like that slightly longer time. I like that. It's loud, but it's really fine, and I like it. What's happening? Sorry, no, it's gonna. So what's happening is like now a kick drum is playing. It's like it feels like there's just some really wrongness going on. Like you're hearing a kick slightly, late and hitting on a completely different beat, but quiet enough. It's just. So it's just a random thing. Honestly, once you put some guitars on that, that'll get soaked up. But it's a subconscious kind of thing. One of the things I learned from working with Jack Douglas in particular is he likes the random. And I think this is something for a lesson for all of us, we listen to the records like 70s rock albums and we still listen and go, wow, the feel was so good. It's not magic. It wasn't like, look, we can all say that these musicians were phenomenal. They were phenomenal. But they were working off each other and they were all pushing and pulling and, drummers had a certain feel like they were late or early. Human beings still have that.
Yeah.
We just correct it.
Sure. Gotcha.
I'm sure that your friend who plays drums, is still a great drummer. He's not a bad drummer because he was born, in the 90s as opposed to the 60s or the 50s. You know what I mean?
The feeling thing is like super interesting. I'm playing in two bands. We have these drummers are like totally different. One is like the typical rock drummer, like really up front, and the other one is more like a little bit behind. It's really interesting to play with those two guys. It's great.
It's great. But the inclination would be a lot of modern producers would be like, oh, this guy's behind or this guy's on top.
Yeah.
We need to correct him. But there's something really exciting about listening to like the Police and hearing that and it's like and Stuart Copeland's pushing the snare. He's like as early as he possibly be before, like it's almost like he feels like he's a beat ahead of everybody else. But it sounds exciting because like at you. And then Bonham, of course, was the opposite. It was like I mean, it literally feels like the snare guy. Could it be any later?
Yeah, it's like they almost fall off the beat, like leaning so much behind.
But everybody played to that.
Yeah.
So it's. I remember I didn't ever think drums were out of time until you got a grid to look at. You just used to think, when I was playing in bands, even in the 90s as this technology was coming in, if I wasn't locking with the drummer, I would have to fix it. I would have to go back in and replay my part till it locked. We never thought to ourselves, oh, the drummer has to be edited. And you put on those records, it's like, it wasn't that every drummer was better in the 70s. Of course they weren't. It was just that bands played together and they had a groove and a feel. And you go and see a band and they had a feel. You know, they had something. And yeah, it's the reason why we love the Police and think Stuart Copeland was an amazing drummer, but we also love Led Zeppelin and think he was a great drummer. There you go. And then, of course, you get the 90s and you get Dave Grohl, who is really kind of a combination of those two drummers.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl is able to push the beat and be aggressive and exciting, but also know how to lay back. I mean, that's what makes him so phenomenal, is that he can blend those two worlds together. I think that's the thing I love. To me, I hear both of those drummers in his playing. I'd love to ask him whether that's true, but it feels like that. So that's the first thing I would really do, is randomize. We took the cymbals down. And another reason for taking down cymbals is once you start applying compression and you start it gets a little dangerous, because if you've got a lot of cymbal bleed in there and you start pushing all of your transients down, that bleed's going to start to feel really, really present. So allow yourself, headroom to really kind of get carried away. So do you want to put a guitar line down?
Yeah, sure.
I want to hear what you're doing.
Yeah,
this
sure.
is all I've heard is the drum part. I want to hear you.
Yeah, sure. So let's go. I have it arranged in like two parts. So you got like this one part, which is the guitar is tuned in a weird tuning. I don't know the name of it. It's like D, G, D, B, and E.
Nice.
And yeah, it makes for like an interesting sound if you like track like two guitars at once, one lower, one higher. I'll show you what I do. So,
tell me a little bit about this guitar. How much is it?
It's $199. And yeah.
It's insane. I picked up this guitar. We did it on camera. I picked up this guitar yesterday. It was a thin line off the wall. And it was, I don't know anything about this, and it was the Harley Benton.
Yeah.
And I took it back and I started playing it, and Kasha's like filming me and I'm playing it. And then I'm like, wow, this is really good. I mean, it was probably about $500 or $600, and I flip it over and it was, what was it, $169, $189. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
I mean, God bless, now that you can buy an instrument that's that inexpensive and that good.
Price range, yeah. Hard to beat.
And then we played this acoustic, and it was 64 euros. 64 euros.
Yeah. So there's no reason to not be creative anymore.
I know. It's beautiful. That's a great line. I like that.
So, let's hear it.
Yeah, I want to hear it. I want to hear what you play. Love this. You maybe want to mix yourself down a little lower and push the drums up so you can get into that groove.
So let's
bring you down just a little bit.
So we're using the Apollo here and using the plugin that comes with it. If you buy it, it's like the
JMP. I have a real one of those.
I've got a 74 at home as well.
Ah, look at you. I got a later one.
They're great.
Mine's a Mark II.
So, but maybe there.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's have a listen.
I just want you to sit into the drums a little bit. One of the things we do as guitar players, and I'm a guitar player, is we end up playing on top a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one of the beauties of the way we used to track, where all the band were always in the room together, is like, you can't get away from the drums.
No, you can't.
And so it's not just hearing it out of speakers. It's like the feeling of being in a room and hearing that kick drum like hitting you. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So, obviously this is a great way of working, but if you've got the experience and the opportunity to track in a room,
it's best thing ever.
Best thing ever. And that creates the records we're talking about that we love. That's a great line, by the way.
So, thanks. I think let's just hit record and see where we go with it. Ugh. yeah, that would be like my little intro thing. So
Yeah.
I would probably do the second guitar now, just
do it.
like for the heck of it. Audio, I see. All right. So there we go.
He's the Cubase user.
I am. That's a question. How would you like? What guitar of those two lines I played? What would you have recorded at first? Like, did I make a mistake in doing like the melody at first? Maybe.
No. I like the idea of doing the melody first. I think that that has to swing. I think you need to push it a little bit more. At the moment you're playing like I think it's so it makes me almost want you to because guitar players, you know, you'll get into that groove. I feel like what I would do is play it a couple more times and then actually go back to the drums.
Okay.
And lay some of those snares back. So instead of being down, so down. That's a nice thing about, you know, even when you're working on your own, you don't have to live and die by the grid.
Okay.
You know, you can sit there and like lay some of these things back. I would have some fun with that, especially there's that little fill, like make that a little lazier.
Like
you know.
like that one.
But I think you should play the part the way that feels really good, and then pretend that you're because you have to be every musician in this situation. So now, you know, pretend you're in the room. There's the drummer. You're like, hey, can you just kind of lay back a little bit? So it's it's got to get like sleazier.
Sleazier. Okay.
Yeah. Good. German and English, we both understand sleazy.
Yeah, sure. So obviously I screwed up and we didn't record the second guitar, but
that's okay.
That wouldn't matter, right?
But I don't have a problem with playing that riff first because I think that's the main thing. Quite often in a song you have to identify what the driving force is. You know, I did a couple of albums with a band called The Fray, and they're all about piano.
Okay.
So everything had to feel good around the piano. So the drummer had to play, you know, and the bass player have to play with the left hand. It has to feel like it's locking in. And you can't like put a drum part down, straighten it, and then make the piano fit over it. They've got to interact. So I think a line that's as cool as that, it's a great line, it has to live and breathe, and then everything else to live and breathe around it, you know.
Okay, so let's try to get a little more sleaze in here.
Good, let's get the sleaze.
So, record.
So what it is when you drag the you can make that a little lazier and then feel like the other part of the riff is playing catch up. So it can be like exaggerate like just slightly. So a couple of times you hit it, I was sort of pointing, but obviously you're playing. But yeah, just sleaze that bit up and then make that feel like it's playing catch up.
All right, do it again.
Actually, this is going to throw you for a loop. I almost feel like you should pluck one more note. So you rather than pull off. Is that really going to mess up your mind?
I like
Better bow.
So no pull off. So like really pluck it.
Just that last.
Yeah.
Yeah, see what that sounds like on the track. I'm messing up with them.
Okay, sure.
I just think it has like a guttural kind of because I can also hear like a bass player could be like oh down it doesn't have to necessarily play every part of your line.
Cool.
It's a great riff.
So
We're getting a 10-minute call. If you're rolling like 4 or 5 takes in a row,
Yeah.
you get more and more into. But this is like these kind of subtle things can really make songs just like come to life, and it's great if you're in a rehearsal room and you can work all the band members like that.
to really exaggerate it.
Yeah, I mean, like, because that's a moment with the drummer. It could be like, you know,
Yeah, totally.
It's just finding those kind of moments where you push and pull grooves. The bass player exaggerates something, lays out. The drummer brings. I mean, I love riffs like this. This is a great riff. The obvious thing is for everybody to go to just play along together, but you've got great opportunity here to exaggerate moments and really create some interesting stuff. It's very blues rock, but then it also kind of reminds me of a little bit, you know.
It's like a blend of all different kind of things. It's
So you've got
like,
a Zeppelin fan, and
it's
you're
like this, like the
Yeah.
whole lot of loud thing is going on a little
Yeah.
bit in there, and a little kind of like country stylish with the open strings and all.
I think the country is what's making me want you to pick it a little bit.
Yeah,
Because one of the things about like Albert Lee, obviously, Country Boy, that's all picked.
yeah, it is.
It's like just getting the combination of the sleaze with the pull off, and then but just down, I think that perfect balance is very universal.
Cool. So if you would like track the second guitar, but the typical situation would be like if you just like have one guitar and one amp, how
Yeah.
would you like make it not so much be in the way of each other?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a problem because you're staying around this area.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually think it's going to be that big of a deal. I mean, one of the things, and it depends. I mean, what's obviously beautiful about what we're doing here is we're keeping this in a budget mindset. We've got an inexpensive guitar. We're using essentially stock plugins, and so we're thinking that way. However, a couple of things I like to do is obviously you can use baritone guitars to fill in gaps. But if you don't have a baritone guitar, take your bass and just use the D and the G string.
Okay. Like one
Yeah,
good right
that's
now.
right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like
So you could actually mirror the line, but playing it on the bass, but on the D and the G, which is actually kind of useful because you wrote it in that area. Now, what I would do is I'd actually use use a distortion sound on it.
so we're actually like really going through the Marshall right now. Would
Yeah,
be
let's try
like
it.
bad, right?
Let's hear it.
So you would play like the same riff like on the D and G.
Playing it in this area.
Like it would
So you
be
might
like,
have to think of.
would be here.
Yep.
Like bending is a little tricky right now.
Yep. Then just go and babodon.
Gotta wrap my mind around because the guitar is tuned differently.
Boom. You could be down, 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 down. Babadon, down, 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 down. Bow, down, 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 down. Babadon, down, 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 down. Bow, down, down.
Would you like keep it up also totally up there like?
That's
higher?
nice.
Okay.
Bass line, we can still work with the low end down here.
Ah, okay.
We're
So
talking
like
about-
we're really not thinking in the bassy kind of way.
We're thinking of because we're thinking about an affordable way to get a baritone guitar. Because how many people are going to buy a baritone guitar as their second instrument? It's like, no. But most guys and girls would have an electric guitar and a bass guitar. So I learned this from Dave Jordan because when he did like Alice in Chains records, they wanted those huge guitar sounds, but they didn't have a baritone handy at the time, so they just picked up a bass and played it in the middle area of the bass, didn't play the low. So they have the guitars playing heavy chords, and then they have the bass playing on the D string. So it's sort of like, it's like a tougher version, because even though that's an E on a guitar, no, it's okay. Even though that's a low E on a guitar,
yeah, sure.
It's so much tougher because it's a big fat string.
And a lot more tension.
Yes, exactly. And then you can put the low E, if necessary, in with the bass. It's just a great way of doing it. Do you want to just try that one line?
Yeah, sure. Like switch to.
Yeah, I love using basses as guitars. If you play them in those kind of areas, it's going to be really good. We've got a 4-minute warning. I think given more time we could refine it, because I think on the third one it should change. I think, but it's great. And now of course you've still got room to do a bass line that's low down, but that sound and that guitar are completely different to each other.
Yeah, totally.
It's just like it's that kind of thinking, and you can do this with just these two instruments. You could layer everything, because now you can go to a regular bass sound, like pull up the B15 emulation and play low but cleaner. And yeah, it's amazing what you can do with a limited amount of instruments. You know, if you think about it in a kind of weird, random way. One of the things that I love about, say, the Beach Boys production was, if you listen to like anything of like Pet Sounds, which is not rock at all, obviously, it's more pop, but the 60s rock at least, is Brian Wilson would choose instruments based on their sonics. So what he would do is it'd be like, you know, a kick drum or whatever, boomy, then a bass guitar, then a guitar, but he would have like a clavinet above it. There was never any competing frequencies. He had like an instrument for a frequency. And it was a lot to do with the fact they were limited to 4 tracks and then 8. They never went past that. And you had to like make sure that everything sat in the right place. Yeah. But he wrote the parts and chose the instruments to work with each other. So I think when it comes to guitar production, you have to think that way. We have to think about parts. Now, of course, if you wanted to layer something else, you would just move to a different part of the neck, do something higher. Yeah. Then you can put the low end of the bass. But then suddenly you've got all of these different areas. And I think the simplest way to think about this is to think of an orchestra. An orchestra is hundreds of years of brain power coming together. You've got double bass, you know, cellos, violas, violins. It's like, it's very smart. It's a lot of hundreds of years of brain power to come together to make this huge instrument work together. And so I would think that way when it comes to guitar production. Just think about how all of those things are going to slot together.
Perfect. So let's switch the plugin, shall we?
Certainly. I think we have about 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds, so I better be quick. Where is it? No. Shit.
He's like, I want to finish this song. I want to get it on the radio.
Where do we have it? There, like, go for the attack. So that's the sound we got. I don't know, let's stick with it.
Let's go with it. I mean, time does not allow us too much choice here, but that's fine. We're at time and we're doing, you know, how many, like 100 videos a day here? This is crazy. Got 3 rooms going at all times, and yeah.
So
these guys here are performing miracles behind the cameras.
So get this down like a little bit. So we're running a little bit hot. So okay, let's hit record and lay down a bass line.
This is fun.
slide, which wasn't really smart because I already got this
Yeah.
slidey thing like in our baritone thing kind of happening.
I think you could get away with pumping eights. You could go dum 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 ba ba dum 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 down. Yeah, we've got a 1 minute warning. See if you can just sit on that root.
Sure. There we go.
All right, here it is. The 1 minute warning. He can do it. Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent. That was a lot of fun.
Was.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much.
Let's do an album. Maybe we'll have more than 15 minutes to come up with it.
Hopefully.
That was amazing. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you too. So, bye bye. Thanks for watching.
So long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen.